Today I wanted to have a quick chat about de-identification and cycle breakers. So one of the main questions of most spiritual teaching would arguably be, who am I? What am I? And you can address that question by trying to identify who am I, or you can address it via, well, who am I not? What am I not? And at the end of that inquiry, you will realize that, well, you're not your thoughts, you're not your name, you're not your job, you're not your profession, you're not your religion, you're none of these things. You're kind of the higher aspect, the consciousness that observes all that and that makes choices. That's who you are. You are the underlying consciousness. And according to my belief, talking again about, everything is energy, and energy by itself is related to a particular frequency, a vibration. And the highest vibration is love. So the word love, but it corresponds to a frequency, something that can be experienced. We're talking about unconditional love. And so if we're talking about, well, ultimately everything is reaching for the singularity, the unique potential of all, that is the highest frequency of love. But underneath that, if we're talking about the souls or individual parts of the singularity, then there's some character traits or some kind of features. It's like it is a particular emanation, derivatization of love. So you have still, or your soul has, quite unique aspects. You can be a love that is perhaps more joyful, or more, might have a lot of humor. So you are a particular expression of that. I don't want to really remove your identity. That's not the point. The point is to remove really the physical attributes of that identity, which you are not. Obviously, physically, you will make choices that are an expression of that higher self, but you are not those expressions. You are the root cause, what chooses to be expressed like that. So love is almost like it's the base frequency, and then you are stemming from that with your particular unique traits. And so when I talk about de-identification, which is something that is absolutely required to reach some kind of spiritual advancement, I'm not talking about letting go of all of that, letting go of all the things you're passionate about in this earthly realm, letting go of things that make you here on planet Earth. Because these are the things that you actually chose to experience. So there's absolutely no point in negating that whatsoever. But on the contrary, once you de-identify from it, you can explore these aspects that you chose to experience at a much deeper level. Because what limits you is really the expectation. You want to achieve things, you want to reach a particular level in the things that you're passionate about and all these things. But if you are detached from the associated outcomes of the things that you're here to embody, then suddenly you have more freedom to actually really truly explore what you came here to explore. So part of the reasons why I really wanted to have a separate chat about de-identification and cycle breaking is, there's so much going on in the world, right? And I'm always thinking, okay, like what is the value here of spirituality? Can spirituality help actually? You know, because if it's of no help, there's little value to it. If it's not something that can be actually used to make the world better, not just me being happier with myself. I mean, that's already achieved, but trying to think about, well, okay, can this be of general help? And so, well, I think, you know, the concept of de-identifying from the earthly reflections of what you are on a higher level, that becomes really, really powerful if we're talking about this the characteristics that one might feel needs to be somehow defended or enforced, right? So if I have a particular job, there's nothing to enforce there. Or if I have a particular passion and I'm just following that passion, well, full identification is not necessarily going to lead to any kind of pain. You know, of course, it might lead to your pain if you don't achieve what you want to achieve, but it's not a generalized pain. So what I'm more talking about here is things like religion and politics. You know, if you identify with a particular religion, and that identification, because there's no distance, there might be a belief that you need to somehow convert people or enforce particular rules that you identified with. Same thing with politics as well. So that's where I believe that the de-identification, where, okay, this is something I'm passionate about and I'm happy to talk about it, to invest time and effort into explaining why I have this passion and explaining everything about it. That's fine. But the full identification with things like religion, politics, if someone would kind of criticize it, well, you are personally criticized because it's your identification. Whereas if there's space, well, of course, I mean, there can be harsh critiques, you know, or really things that are absolutely not constructive whatsoever. And I understand that this is hard to deal with, but when you're in a position that you're not taking it personally because of de-identification, that's where things could get much, much better, I believe. And so this leads me to the concept of cycle breakers, and this applies to a range of things. You know, it applies to you as yourself. It applies to your next of kins, you know, like your family, immediate family. It applies to countries, it applies to religions, it applies to any type of individuals or groupings. And what's really meant with a cycle breakers is a bit like Eckhart Tolle puts it. You know, he talks about personal and collective pain, or the collective pain body, which can be where entire like countries or cultures can be identified with, you know. And the pain comes from everything that in the past, in the concepts of linear time, has happened to a particular group or person. And so if we're talking about, let's say, either a family or a larger group, breaking the cycle means, well, can you embrace the energy or embrace whatever that group has been through? Can you embrace it without the need to pass it on? And that also relates to the concept of alchemy that I already explained, the transmutation of energy. Can you hold something without passing it on? And that's a very, very powerful thing, right? It's a bit like, there's various sayings about that. Can you drink the poison without having others taste it, or things like that? It's, can you hold it and be strong enough so that it ends with you? You're not passing it on. And that is, to a large extent, possible through de-identification. Because when you identified with it, the urge to act on it is potentially just too big for anybody to hold. And holding it is obviously very, very painful. That's where the concept of transmutation or alchemy comes in, where you hold it, but then you can transform it into, well, ultimately you want to transform it into a higher frequency, which ultimately could be love, if you reach that point. But can you just break the cycles? Can you imagine like how much of society's issues worldwide are based on not necessarily what people have currently experienced, but what generations have experienced before that, and that leads to that perpetual cycle of, well, some pain has been inflicted, pain is inflicted back. And that's probably the most difficult thing you could ever do as a human being. That's highest level spiritual development, where you can stop anything in its track. It stops with you. You're kind of the rock. And it's not a good position to be in. You are the rock. You're the thing that holds everything together. You are not. Everything stops with you, except for love, of course. But you're kind of a sponge for the bad, and you hold it, and you don't let anybody really taste it. And so imagine just everyone being somewhat more able to do that. Imagine if everything would stop. It would become kind of a reboot. It would be a restart. Because the world as it is, we're just in that cycle, right? So imagine we could just pump the brakes on all of that, restart. Of course, there are aspects that are very, very difficult, and that's why sometimes for most conflicts or things that are difficult, it's kind of a known fact. You have to wait generations. You have to wait for the people that kind of carried the brunt of it, and with their inability to let it go, you need to wait until these people pass so that you can somehow refresh the newer generation being aware of things, but they haven't really tasted the real physical implications of anything you could talk about. They haven't been personally affected by it. But that concept of cycle breaking, and it can be also in families, stories of abuse. It carries from generation to generation, because one person gets messed up, and then that messed up person is going to mess up another person, and if you turn that around, go back to the concept of healed people heal people. Healed people heal people. Because once you can stop not only do you stop that, but you also show others how to stop it, or you are able to explain, listen, this is possible. You're an example. Um, and so yeah, I was in that exploration with myself, and I was thinking, God, like something needs to change. And I'm wondering, I mean, I hear concepts that well, I can relate to, but I'm not, I can't really feel it entirely, where perhaps there's a collective energy on the planet, and perhaps if enough people, or sufficient people, a sufficient number of people can hold it and can stop it and can embody a higher frequency towards the highest frequency, which is love. Is there a threshold where suddenly everyone gets positively affected? You know, is there um, like a herd effect? You know, when suddenly, if like, I don't know, 30 people, 30% of people, or 20, or maybe it needs to be 50, maybe it needs to be 90 of people are able to somehow catalyze pain, or at least stop it and perhaps transmute it. Perhaps this has then a carry-on effect on the rest, and then suddenly we can reboot or restart. Because what I observe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume you guys have similar experiences. Otherwise, just share. Happy to share your see your comments. But like the world's getting more and more polarized. You know, where this identification with a belief, or how to look at the world, the polarization is so extreme. Like there's not even an ability to talk to each other anymore. So that epitomizes identification. Everything is taken personally. There's no room. There's no distance between you and your beliefs. You are it. If someone scratches it or criticizes it, you are personally affected, and you will respond very emotionally, and that in turn is gonna impact the other side, and on and on and on and on. So what's required here is the space, and perhaps I'm the right pointer for you, perhaps other people are the right pointers. You need to experience that space, and that's the difficult part. It can happen in an instant. And if I knew what the secret sauce would be for every single one of you, I would give you that sauce so that you can experience it. Once you experience it, you don't need anybody anymore. Once you experience it, you are your own God, Savior. You are your own divinity, and that's anyway the reality. It's just that sometimes people have to point you towards the right direction, but we're just waiting for the click to happen. Once it happens, you don't need anything. You have your own wisdom inside yourselves. Once you experience it and feel it, nothing else is required. And that's why I wrote this little book. Why I did this. Why I'm doing this YouTube channel, because I myself, when I was many years ago, the smallest thing could trigger something quite unique in me. And I can't even remember all the times that I had those right pointers where suddenly I was in that energy. I'm like, now I get it. And then I realized I heard that in many different variations before, but it never triggered that energetic switch where suddenly I got it. I needed the right words. I needed the right maybe person, or being able to relate to someone, and then suddenly I relate to how they described it. That's what's needed. And then suddenly once you have it, you have it, and then you explore your own divinity, and you can do that to the rest of your life because there's always more to explore. But you need that initial realization of, oh, there's space there. That's not who I am. Oh, now I get it. You need that realization, and one of the major hurdles is your mind, because until you have that realization, your mind will always say, well, there's all these people, they talk about spiritual stuff and they seem really involved, but like it's not these people, they're on drugs, or like they're part of a cult, or these people are tweaking. I mean, and I fully understand it because I know exactly how it is on the other side. I fully understand it. I'm bridging the worlds. I can fully understand because that was me at some stage as well. And that's why I know perfectly well that you cannot teach that to anybody. You can only kind of move them towards their own self-realization. You cannot teach it. You cannot sit people down in a classroom and say, well, we're going to go through that course, and at the end of the 6 weeks course, you learn all your lessons, and then you're going to get it. That's not how it works. That's unfortunately not how it works. Everyone has to get there by themselves. It's just that I'm taking my responsibility seriously, that I am saying things with my own words, and maybe I can reach a couple of you guys that can't resonate with anybody else out there just because it's the way they speak, or it's just too foreign for you. I don't know. I'm just doing my bit. If I can help one person out, I'm gonna be successful. So I'm gonna continue doing these things, and search deep within myself ways to convey the things that I experience, or that I feel. And I can only hope that it leads to something. But even if it doesn't, again, the identification means that I should remove myself from outcomes. So the only point here is that I do my things. Whatever. Who was it who said that? Maybe it's Bashar who said, well, you should move towards your passion, right? So even if you're a bit more passionate about something than something else, it's going to lead towards something. So that's my radar, that's my compass at the moment, and that's the only thing I'm going for. And yeah, I hope that I can be of value in this society. But I wish to say that I truly enjoy being a connection, whomever I'm in connection with. These are particular moments in my life where and when people mention channeling, I mean, channeling is nothing else than just being yourself. You are your own channel. There's nothing you need to do. You don't have to. I don't have any type of gifts or anything. And perhaps that's because I'm a masculine. I had to reinvent everything for myself. I've had experiences with psychedelics and things like that, but otherwise I don't perceive myself to have any type of gifts of clairvoyance, clairsentience, all these things. I don't have these things. I go by my experience, and I go by my own truth. And it's been hard. I mean, it's not trivial. Combine that with my scientific mind, which is kind of OCD and super perfectionist. That's not an easy road, but it took a long time until I kind of accepted the fact that, hang on, like, we cannot discard all these experiences. Like, there's something missing there. We need to pursue that. It took me a long, long time to integrate all these things within myself and to reconcile the science with my experience, and I've talked about quantum theories and all these things. So it required me to go really deep in all these subjects to find a way for myself um, to be comfortable, be okay with the reality I've been creating for myself. So with that being said, I invite you all to play around with that de-identification and see where you can be a cycle breaker. It can be a very easy thing in traffic, someone, flips you off, like you just stop it right there. You say, oh, someone's having a bad day, but I'm not gonna continue that cycle. Or in a shop, someone treats you like, I don't know, a cashier treats you unfairly or disrespects you in some kind of way. You just stop it right there. You just acknowledge it for what it is. In your own way, you can create tremendous change by small little shifts, small shifts that are they're simple. They're not easy. It's very simple, but it's definitely not easy. A bit like life. So with that, I hope to see you soon. Take care. Have a good day.